Welcome in to the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I'm Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com, the best place for Tennessee Titans news and analysis. Been at this for going on 30 years now, actually talking to the decision makers and the players involved with this team with a journalistic background and the respect of a lot of the people involved for generations and generations of this team with institutional knowledge. I'm at Edley's Barbecue at 12 South, one of my favorite places in Nashville. There are 7 others in and around town. We will get to talk about them, but I am going to pig out, Ryan. I am going to pig out after this show is done, and I cannot wait because I've had nothing to eat so far today. It's good to see so many of you here. Season wrapped, coaching search underway. We're going to talk about that, I'm sure, for a good share of the show. Going to talk about overdoing the coordinator estimations before the head coach is even hired. Going to talk about cuts this team can make to add to its already enormous salary cap pool. I'm going to talk about Ruben Bain and why I do not love one of the main players that is connected to the Titans at number 4 in the draft. And we're going to take a ton of your questions, as we always do. Happy to see you here. Good way to conclude the week. And let's get to it. Spread the word here with the retweet. Point your friends to YouTube. Subscribe, do all of those things on the video platforms. And if you're listening later on Apple, on iHeart, on Spotify, same thing, rate, review, subscribe, all help the cause. And I much appreciate it. Let's talk about the coaching search. A lot going on in the coaching world. Jason Garrett in Nashville today to talk to the Titans. We're keeping track with a handy list like this. If you're viewing, Zach Lyon's doing a terrific job of monitoring what's going on. So the Titans have already spoken to Mike McCoy, obviously in person, to Vance Joseph, the Broncos defensive coordinator, by Zoom, to Lou Anarumo, the Colts defensive coordinator, who was with the Bengals for a long time in that role, by Zoom, to Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs defensive coordinator, by Zoom, to Matt Nagy, the Chiefs defensive coordinator, by Zoom, and today to Jason Garrett in person. Tomorrow to Kevin Stefanski in person. Monday, Raheem Morris, the former Falcons head coach, in person. They cannot talk to guys who are currently employed by an NFL team by anything but Zoom, and the time at which they can do that is regulated also by the league until January 19th. That was to kind of slow down the process and stop the kind of free-for-all thing. John Harbaugh is who everybody wants to know about. I do not think John Harbaugh is on the Titans' radar. The power structure that he's asking for, per Tony Grossi, the longtime Cleveland Browns beat reporter, is outrageous. He'll get it, but and I'm just recalling this off the top of my head. He wants $20 million a year. He wants a $10 million pool for his assistant coaches. He wants total control of the roster, and he wants to hire his own GM. Titans are further along than that, with Mike Borgonzi in control of the roster. I know there are people out there that would tear up the Titans' existing system. I don't think it's a wise thing to do. I think Harbaugh is a terrific coach. But where the Titans are, would you again tear things up and effectively fire Mike Borgonzi to get John Harbaugh? I know a lot of you would say, yes, you have to do it. I think Mike Borgonzi is a good football man, and it would be unreasonable to do that. Plus, John Harbaugh doesn't seem enamored of the Tennessee Titans. I know people are taking that as a slight. He doesn't seem enamored of Arizona. He doesn't seem enamored of, a lot of these other jobs that are open. Miami, maybe. Atlanta maybe. Seems like things are set on New York, where he can apparently, it seems like, get Joe Shane fired. And New York should have fired Joe Shane at the start of this whole thing. Liam Cohen last year made a similar play, was interested in the Jaguars' job. They would not fire their GM, who should have been fired, said no thanks. Then they fired their GM and came back and said, what about now? And he said, yeah, let's talk. So a lot going on there. Mike McCarthy also scheduled to talk to the Titans next week. Guys coming up: Jeff Hafley, Robert Saleh, Arthur Smith, Jesse Minter, and Chris Shula. And then that entire list of known people who have talked to the Titans or will: 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. Could that be it? Yes. Will that be it? We do not know for sure. 13 plus I did not have McCarthy on this list. I know I created some controversy last week when I said I didn't know if they loved McCarthy or if McCarthy loved them. I did not say they would not interview him. I know this has been parsed, and they are, in fact, interviewing him. Not too proud to say that my initial intel on that suggested they might not. And I said I didn't have that firmly. Obviously, what I had wasn't firm because it was incorrect, but I did not report it as fact. Let's get to some questions. Good to see you guys again. Always look forward to this, says Clinton Bell. Do I think they're going to continue this Friday podcast thing during the offseason? You know what? I'm going to put up a survey asking when you would like this. In the offseason, when things are quiet, I prefer not to work on Fridays, to be honest with you, and I would prefer to do them on Thursdays. And so I think I may move to Thursdays at lunch, but I'll see what you see. Sam, great to see you, my good friend. It feels like this is a particularly loaded coaching cycle, especially with very potentially strong coordinator options for a new head coach. Can I remember one like this? You know, I am terrible at these questions. Can I remember something like, I'd have to do some serious research in order to answer yes or no on that question. It seemed like it was not going to be particularly good. And then Stefanski got fired. That raised the stakes. Harbaugh getting fired certainly raised the stakes. McDaniel getting fired raised the stakes. I don't know if he's going to be a head coach, but he certainly spices up the coordinator pool. And so things have definitely gotten bigger. And then I don't think we were expecting 8 spots to open, right? I thought it was going to be during the season. I would have said 5, then 6, 7 is the average. And here we are at 8, a quarter of the league. And so the turnover is somewhat incredible. And then Sam, a friend of ours, said in our group chat, you know, the player turnover in the league is massive. A lot of teams, you know, turn over nearly half their roster in a season if you're in a building phase. And the only thing that can keep an organization stable is that head coaching spot. And now you're seeing massive turnover at that, and the just level of impatience and instability. I'm not talking to Baltimore here because they went 18 years. And not even necessarily talking to Cleveland because they went 6. But it seemed like Miami, you know, had steadied itself to some degree with the 4-game winning streak there. And do you give the coach time to develop himself? And I think in some of these circumstances, particularly look at these GMs who are holding on to their job. These GMs are buying themselves incredible amounts of time. Chris Ballard is buying himself time. Monty Ossenfort hasn't been there a long time, but he's getting a chance to hire a second head coach, and he should. You know, Chris Greer got fired in Miami, but look at some of these places where the coaches are being fired and the GM is getting a chance to hire. The perception is the GMs spend so much more time with the owners that they buddy up and they get to hang around, and the coaches, more than their share of blame falls on the coaches. But yeah, I understand. If you think you've got a dud coach, you've got to fire him and give stability to the next guy. But, I think you got to give some stability to some of these coaches to go. So many good choices. It's interesting that the CRA thinks that. Let's not go mess up and hire Nagy. I don't think there are that many great choices. I mean, I can't say that. What I can say is there's a lot of unknown, right? We don't know what Jeff Hafley is going to be, or Minter, or Shula. Now, you hope that they pan out and that they are good coaches. Like Kevin O'Connell is a good coach, right? Now, he had a shit year. His team had a shit year. But you didn't catch wind of them wanting to fire him. And this is that kind of impatience I'm talking about. Like, look at Washington. 2 years ago, Washington was healthy and everything was great. And a year later, after Jaden Daniels was really hurt and things were really messed up, there's some kind of internal conflict there with he and Dan Quinn, and Cliff Kingsbury's out. Are they going to hire a better coordinator there than Cliff Kingsbury? Well, they probably are going to hire an equally good coordinator because Mike McDaniel's probably going there because he and Dan Quinn are tight. But that's good fortune for them, right? And they fired Kingsbury before McDaniel was free. So take McDaniel out of it. Were they going to get a better coordinator than Cliff Kingsbury before Mike McDaniel came free? That seems hasty to me. All right, so let's talk about this. T-Man is campaigning Robert Saleh and Mike McDaniel 2026, like a presidential ticket. And look, I think it's fun to think about, and there's a pairing there. They have connections. They have connections from from San Francisco. But there's a logical connection there. Robert Saleh and Mike McDaniel from their time together in San Francisco. But we're doing too much of this fantasy football-ish pairing of coach and coordinator, right? We're overdoing it. People are like building dream team things. They're saying, just give me Hafley as the head coach, Raheem Morris as the defensive coordinator, and Cliff Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator. They're not looking for connections, or they're not being reasonable and expect. I mean, that would be a hell of a three-pack. But do those guys want to work together? Do those two former NFL head coaches want to come be coordinators for a first-time head coach in Nashville, Tennessee for Amy Adams Strunk's organization? Give me Stefanski and get Schwartz back here to be defensive coordinator with Nagy as the coordinator. Well, Jim Schwartz, a lot of people want as coordinator. Jim Schwartz under contract in Cleveland. He's interviewing for the head coaching position. And Haslam, the owner there, said he's very anxious to keep Schwartz. So odds are Schwartz is the defensive coordinator in Cleveland, and that'll be a conditional thing for the new head coach in Cleveland. You can't just mix and match these puzzle pieces and say like you're putting together a dream team like Vince Young once called the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think people are being a little haphazard in the way they're just slapping together these coaching staffs. It will be hard to get some of these guys. Now, I've said I think Borgonzi could be involved. I think there's potential if Nagy doesn't get a head coaching job and they hire a young defensive coordinator, that Nagy could end up the play calling offensive coordinator here. He's not under contract to Kansas City anymore. Mike Kafka, another possibility. Brian Daboll, another possibility. There's some good offensive coordinators out there. But head coach going to have primary say in whose offensive coordinator is. who his quarterback coach is. And I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves with some of these things that we are just automatically piecing together. So Garrett, what a joke. Well, look, Borgonzi's known him a long time. His brother, linebackers coach in Dallas, worked for Garrett. Again, how was I so wrong? I had some indications that it might not be there. Again, I said I didn't have it firm. My God, if we came in here and threw a parade for every time I was right, the way we're killing me for having some indications that things weren't wrong, the world would be a whole different place. And it's an interview, not a hiring. Eric Bieniemy's name has come up nowhere for nothing. There's an awful lot of curiosity about Eric Bieniemy, considering haven't heard his name. How much money would it take to keep Stefanski from leaving the building? I don't know. I mean, we know this. We know this about the Titans. Amy Adams Strunk is not afraid to pay, in that she at one point was paying 3 head coaches at the same time. And that Mike Vrabel's second contract was paying him premium money. I can't remember how much that was. Brian Callahan was very cheap, stunningly cheap, $3 million a year. Stunningly inexpensive. She's getting somebody like Stefanski. That's going to be quite a bit more expensive for sure. And I don't think that's prohibitive for her by any means. And I don't know what that number is. Harbaugh reportedly is asking for $20 million a year. I don't think the Titans have a chance at Harbaugh. And whoever they get, they're not going to be paying $20 million a year. Ed Henry, good to see you. Says, realizing some can only do Zoom interviews now, but for those that are in person, does it interview an elevated level of interest at the stage? No, it's an indicator of the rules. Jason Garrett doesn't work in the league, so he's allowed to do an in-person interview. And Jeff Hafley is in the league, so he can only do a Zoom interview. That doesn't elevate his Garrett's status. It just tells you about where he's employed. Unemployed guys can interview in person. So McCarthy can come to town next week. Arthur Smith is coaching a game Monday night, so he can only Zoom and not before next Wednesday. This has nothing to do with status. It's all about employment status. Mike McCoy works in the building. He was allowed to talk to them face to face. Vance Joseph's the Broncos defensive coordinator. He's not allowed by rule to interview face to face until at least the 19th of January. Nothing to do with status. Callahan just interviewed with the Bucs for a head coach. Very nice from Quilty Girl. Late signing on, but want to say Happy New Year. Thanks for this update. Appreciate you. Quilty Girl, good to see you. And Happy New Year to all of you. I did not say that at the beginning. I'll do my reverse Chris Berman. Let me be the last to say Happy New Year. It is January 9th, so let's follow Larry David. It's far too late to be wishing each other a Happy New Year. 20 days until my birthday. I disagree with this. McCarthy is more attractive than Harbaugh as a head coach, has similar resume and is offensive-minded. Older, more dated. Harbaugh, much more current. Harbaugh isn't a good fit. I don't know what makes Harbaugh a bad fit. Harbaugh is a good fit anywhere. Anywhere. Stable. Super stable. Yeah, I'd put LaFleur at the top. The CRA says put LaFleur at the top if he gets fired, then Harbaugh, then Stefanski. If not, then go to Saleh or Shula for head coach with McDaniel or Raheem DC. Well, McDaniel is an offensive coach and Raheem is a defensive coach. So you're a little bit all over the place there. I I like Stefanski and Saleh. And I think they would bring the best staffs. And I think staff is monumentally important. Titans are unfairly known as cheap. Cade Smith is saying, do I have any insight into how the Titans can compete financially with paying a new coach and staff? It's not been a problem when Mike Vrabel got his second contract. It wasn't a problem to pay him market value. Wasn't a problem for them to pay Dean Pease when he wanted to bring in Dean Pease, who was a veteran coach worth money. I don't think money is a problem on this. The things the Titans are cheap on are dumb things to be cheap on. And I don't know if this is still the case. Bud used to pay players, but then, he'd complain about the FedEx bill. And I think, if the Titans are cheap, first off, I think that they're not technically cheap. I think the reputation outlives some of the facts. But if they are cheap, they're cheap on stuff like that, unimportant stuff. Coaching salary, I think they're, regular position coaches probably don't make as much as regular position coaches other places. But I think if they have to bid on somebody that they really want, that they'll go. I think, Kong on comms is here saying, got to make a full-out push for Harbaugh with the money and whatever. If Harbaugh's not interested in you, I don't know what you can do about it. And I don't know that you should take that as the Titans' failure. Again, there are a whole bunch of jobs that he is not interested in. It's not interested in the Browns, no matter if the Browns would pay him or not. Another guy that you could keep in mind is McDermott. You got a weekend of football here where if Tomlin loses, if the Bills lose, if the Packers lose, we could see some more movement. Ed Henry says, do I think they were prudent enough to get a head start on their candidate research to include those that are now fired? Yes, I do. I for sure, I 85% can tell you that they researched Stefanski, anticipating that something could happen today. They had a lot of time. And listen, I've asked some questions over there about draft guys, and I've gotten answers that they, I don't want to say they're behind, because you don't have to be anywhere with draft guys right now. But my sense is that the Tennessee Titans have not done the same level of draft preparation that you would usually have done at this stage, which is not a big deal. Draft is a long time away. Senior Bowl's coming, Combine's coming, all that stuff's coming. You could do a lot of film. There are people who are out on the road looking at people, including Borgonzi and the like. But they didn't do as much draft stuff because they were doing coach stuff. And look, the draft stuff doesn't matter until you have the coach. So their priorities were properly placed, for sure. Basement Bloggers, Lauren Jacobson, new name to me, I think. He had to write that one down. If you want to discuss that, tell me, and I could delve into it. It's not a particular thing that I want to get into, but I'm here for you guys. Raheem is scheduled CRA for Monday. I'm now going to scroll down to the newest stuff and work my way back. Caribbean, how are you? I think you and I are making some progress. We got off to a shaky start. We always hear this is one of only 32 jobs in the world. Is there a realistic possibility that the Titans could be turned down by the coach they pick? Is accepting the interview? I don't get that last part. Is there a realistic chance you get turned down? Well, yes. I mean, if a guy is coming and doing his due diligence and interviewing with several teams, and the Titans love him, after completing their whole thing, and he's interviewed 3 places, and he feels better about a different place. Is it realistic they lose him? Yes. This is a different interview process. This is a different interview process than the last time around when they had Callahan in and said, this is our guy and we don't want to let him leave. And he was scheduled to go to Carolina, I believe. They didn't want to let him get to Carolina, and so they didn't let him leave. It doesn't seem like this will go that way based on how many guys they have scheduled to come through. So, is it possible that Stefanski is here on Saturday and they decide that and they say, we don't want to let you leave, Kevin? Can we do to make this happen? And that happens before they talk to Raheem Morris, Jeff Hafley, Robert Saleh, Art Smith, Jesse Minter, and Chris Shula. I guess it's possible. I think anything's possible there. But I think Stefanski probably has more on the other side of it. And the Titans have, I just listed 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5, 6, because I didn't count McCarthy there. They got a half a dozen other guys they're intending to see. So I think it would be a real bombshell if the Titans on Saturday or into Sunday reached an agreement with Kevin Stefanski and loved him to that degree, and he loved them back to that degree, that they both stopped their processes. But is it possible? Yeah. And would that tell us, like, whoa, this is real love on both sides? Yeah, absolutely it would. So in that regard, it'd be a great feeling about the marriage, right? MB says, Harbaugh's a good coach, but until I know who OCDC are, I can't put him at the top since he's not on the offensive defensive side. Well, listen, which coach on this list do you know who his offensive and defensive coordinators are? Like, that's a consideration for Mike Borgonzi during this. Hey, who do you think you can bring? What's your depth chart of offensive and defensive coordinators? And what's their contract situation? And what would it cost to get them and all of that? But that's not for you to know. Who tell me the coach and who his offensive and defensive coordinators are that you know. Jeremy Martin says that Schefter reported that Callahan interviewed for the offensive coordinator job in Tampa. Wow. That is stunning that the Bucs, I just don't see how his play calling for a year and 3 games qualifies him to go down there and be the successor to what has been very good offensive work by Baker Mayfield, who's had a new offensive coordinator for 5 years in a row or something like that. I like Tampa Bay's organization. I think Todd Bowles has topped out. I think he's a guy that should have been fired despite their success. And I like Brian Callahan personally, but if he gets an offensive coordinator job, I think that's really difficult. Here's the thing, like from Preston Jones, he'd like to keep Wilson as DC. I mean, you can't decide to keep Wilson as DC until you see who the coach is and what he wants to do at defensive coordinator. Now, is it possible he likes Denard Wilson? Sure. But odds are he's got a guy he wants. And when you change coach, you're sweeping things out, especially from the top. You keep a position coach or two, and then you keep a lot of low-level people that you want to develop that the organization has invested in. But Denard Wilson did some very good work and deserves a lot of credit. But new blood. This whole thing's about new blood. Somebody's saying Zach Taylor's out. Zach Taylor get fired? A friend of mine's pointing out in my love falling in love with Kevin Stefanski and getting something done over the weekend, they would still need to have in-person interviews with two minority candidates to meet the Rooney Rule. So they've talked to Vance Joseph by Zoom, and they've got that Raheem Morris in-person interview scheduled. That would be Monday, but they would need to have that Morris interview and at least one more minority candidate in person. Salah, I believe, qualifies as a minority. Oh, okay, Ivan. This makes sense. To clarify, feeling that Harbaugh is a bad fit, he said, based on Grossi's reporting of demands, mainly around control over the roster. That is completely reasonable. Oh, I agree with this. Robert says, I don't think Stefanski would do a courtesy interview. If he's coming in person, he's interested. He's interested, but, I mean, he's got a lot of interest on the other side. So certainly it's one of his top jobs. I also have a strong feeling that Salah likes this job. Now, I think he will like the Miami job as well. CRA saying, why do so many people want Nagy as OC? If we hire Stefanski, it's okay if he calls his own plays. Also, Kingsbury and McDaniel, superior to Nagy. Stefanski has said, I think, that he is, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that he won't call, oh, no, sorry, Nagy has said he won't call his own plays if he's a head coach. Yeah, if Stefanski's the head coach, I don't think anybody's calling for Nagy as the offensive coordinator. You don't need that kind of offensive coordinator if Stefanski's the head coach. I think we're primarily talking about Nagy as a potential play caller if there's a young defensive head coach. Dom is all in on Shula or Minter. Young defensive geniuses, I think that's a little strong, who have great connections to talented offensive coordinators. It's time to have a defense that flies around again. Well, you know what you need to have a defense that flies around again is players who fly around. And one of the things you need to have players who fly around is, a replacement for Cody Barton, things like that. And, how many positions can they replace? I'm retweeting here. I'd ask you to do the same. We'll grow our already very solid crowd, which would be great. Let me tell you about this place I am at, Edley's Barbecue, which is a terrific, terrific place to eat. The food here is fantastic. I rotate between burnt ends, which is delicious, and avocado salad, which has an entire avocado. They put the protein that you want on top of it with barbecue sauce. I get usually the brisket. Sometimes I go crazy. I get the chicken or the pork. Can you smell it? It smells so good in here. Look, even when it's full, the line moves really fast. You get a big portion at an inexpensive price. The bar behind me here where Ryan's the bartender on Friday afternoons, she serves up cold drinks, big beers, reasonable prices. Food is great. Edley's is fantastic. They've got locations all over the place. There's Sylvan Park and a couple in Franklin and Berry Farms and at the factory, Gallatin, Donaldson, all over the place. You should come for a business lunch. Bring somebody for a business lunch. Bring your family for lunch over the weekend, for dinner. Come watch a game. If you sit at the bar, there are TVs. You can see TVs behind me. They're all over the place. And if you can't make it, they have done an end around, a massive end around where DoorDash and Grubhub and all these places are out of the loop. They've got their own app. You download the Edley's app. You punch in your zip code. They tell you if you're in range. Odds are you're in range because I just told you they got 8 locations. They got Nashville covered and surrounded. And so you get punch your zip code in. They tell you if you're in range. You order up food on there. and they charge you a pittance for delivery as compared to these delivery companies that rip you off and make you feel like you're ordering 3 dinners instead of 2. And so they deliver the food fast, hot, cheap, and it's as if you're Edley's is in your house. It's a terrific deal all around. They've been a terrific partner of mine. I'm proud to have them as my sponsor of this podcast. If you like me, you like them, all around a beautiful circle of life. Eat at Edley's, order from Edley's, support them, and you can't go wrong. This is always followed when I talk about Edley's by a flurry of comments about how much everybody likes Edley's. So if you're an Edley's fan, it's time to make an extra stop or an extra order. If you're unfamiliar, I don't know what you're doing, but it's time to get on board. Edley's Barbecue, best food around, best barbecue around. Don't delay any longer. And I thank them for their support. Here we go. Sports Media America says, great tip on Edley's delivery option. I was not aware of that. And there you go. Who hires a head coach first out of all of these teams? Banksy fan says. I don't know. That's a good question. We will see. Didn't Haslam decide they're keeping DC? He said he wants Schwartz there. Schwartz is under contract. So odds are his new coach is keeping Schwartz. Now, if he hires a defensive coach who doesn't want Schwartz, circumstances could change. And Schwartz either has or is interviewing for the job there. So he could be the Browns' new head coach. And I'd love to see that for Jim, who I like a great deal personally. If Green Bay fires LaFleur, unless they hire a Harbaugh, that feels like the Vrabel firing, but arguably worse. Yet as a Titans fan, please do it, Green Bay. Yeah, that's good. Look, there are teams like Green Bay, like Baltimore, like Buffalo, that are good teams that have not been able to break through. That if they fire their guy, you can't judge whether it was the right thing to do until we see what the replacement does. Does Harbaugh's replacement come in, pick up where he left off, and take them further, where an MVP-level quarterback and Derrick Henry and a defense that is pretty consistently good and a front office that drafts great get the fruits of that labor? Or do they fall back and you say, hey, turns out Harbaugh was getting the most out of this and there's something else missing? Don't know. McDermott, has he gotten stale there, and can somebody do more with an MVP quarterback? Green Bay, a very generally always sound team that is always in the playoffs, but is lately been, the 7th seed and out early. Is LaFleur maximizing that, or is his ceiling too low? This is a fair question. I understand why the fan base, same thing with Tomlin. Understand why those fan bases feel like they are not achieving as much as they want. But there's a danger in firing a coach that is getting you to that level all the time, and that whose team has a chance every year to be in the tournament and maybe break through. Maybe this is a year. If the Ravens had won that game, if they had hit that kick and gotten into the tournament without a clear-cut favorite in the AFC, who's to say the Ravens couldn't have gotten on a run, that the Bills won't get on a run? AFC's as wide open as I can remember it in a long time. NFC, I think it's tough for the Packers because just in the NFC West alone, with Seattle and with San Francisco and the Rams, I think you've got a lot of big hurdles. But those moves, the Baltimore move and the potential for those other moves, you're not going to know if that's the right thing for a couple of years. Inexpensive, not cheap focus. And here's a point. Kong on Comms is saying, when Andy Reid took the Kansas City job, the roster wasn't that great either. Good coaches have inherited bad rosters. And look, we're saying this. The Jaguars flip their record in a season, right? You get a good coach and an influx of talent that is not a roster overhaul. You cannot do a roster overhaul in one season, right? Titans started a bit. You get the right coach, you have another good draft, and 3 key free agents plus 3 more that are, role players, Sebastian Joseph Day level guys. And that can be enough to do what Jacksonville did, to do what New England did, to do what Chicago did. If Cam Ward can play for you, and you can see more of the good Cam Ward because the coach can get it out of him and because he's got better weapons and better conditions. There is no reason that Nashville cannot be Duval. I did a video on that from Everbank Stadium. Got a few other things I wanted to cover here. Am I crazy? Let me get to the notes here. Give me a second. Am I crazy not to love Ruben Bain? I want a bendy, longer, bustier. That's ridiculous. I sound like Estelle Costanza. Let me try that again. Am I crazy not to like Ruben Bain? I want a bendier, longer, burstier player off the edge for the Tennessee Titans. And if they got a Ruben Bain in the second round, I'd love it. But the guy I'm looking for off the edge for the Titans, I know, Javon Curse is a strange guy to say. He's a one-of-a-kind guy. But I want somebody who's closer to him, who's going to burn the edge. And sure, it's fine to have a power guy as your primary edge, but I just don't. I watched, before I sat down to do this, a highlight reel of what he did on Thursday night. And I mean, that's impactful play. But the impactful play comes largely out of super effort with a lot of power. And I'm not saying that can't succeed in the NFL, but it's not the 4th pick in the draft to me. I need a more complete player. And again, here's where I think the Titans are screwed having the 4th pick, because Carnell Tate's a very good receiver, but he lacks the complete package because he doesn't have the speed. And Reese hasn't played enough edge. So you're going to come out of it with Reese and Femi Oladejo, 2 guys who are converting to edge. It's just not enough. And so I look at Bain and Tate and Reese as potential number 4 picks, and maybe I convert over time. I don't feel like any of them are good enough to be picked that high. And I'm desperate for a trade out. They're desperate, and I don't think it happens because I think everybody's going to think the same thing. Incomplete. Tell me in the comments here, am I crazy? Let's see what you guys got. We need speed at edge. We are in a shitty spot either way. No, I'm not crazy. No, not crazy. I'd love David Bailey, but the thing about David Bailey is that he might not be a full-time guy and he might not defend the run well enough. And so if you take David Bailey at 8, at 10, at 13, specialty pass rusher, designated pass rusher is fine, but I got to have a first rounder that's a 3-down player. Yes, and so I'll say this about Love, and I've been down on the idea of drafting a running back for this team because I think it's a luxury position. I think Love is a luxury position for the Tennessee Titans. Jeremiah Love is a luxury position for the Tennessee Titans, but because I find shortcomings in Bain and Reese and Tate, and because I think you have to have a complete player drafting at 4, I reopen the conversation to allow for Jeremiah Love. I don't like it based on the Titans' desperation at edge and wide receiver and corner. But on the completeness meter, You may have to consider Jeremiah Love if you're stuck at 4. I'm backtracking on that. I'm evolving, and I'm allowing for the possibility because I got to have a guy who's got it all. And those other guys don't seem to have it all. Yeah, the Oregon tight end. He's got it all. You can't take him at 4. I agree with this. Titan MG. There are too many holes on the roster to take Love. But this is a situation where you start to think about best player available if the players at the positions you're desperately in need of are not good enough. Sammy, who's a draftnik and a bright guy who I love, says not crazy at all. But he thinks I'm looking for a unicorn. Teams got so many holes, you just take whoever you think is the most impactful long term. If that's Bailey, because it's a passing league, do it. I could see that. Can you take him at 4?
Better? Okay, good.
Because here's Dalton saying David Bailey cannot stop the run, period. He's the most explosive pass rusher in the draft, but will likely only play 1 down. Well, you're not only playing 1 down if you're a pass rushing specialist in the NFL, which is a passing league. You're playing 2 downs. And there's mixed reviews here because Cade Smith says he's improved against the run. It could be a league average run defender with high upside.
I'm right there with you. I was drug out.
Yeah, and continuing on this, Big says someone showed Bain versus Ole Miss, and he looked strong but slow, and it's how Chambliss was able to make things happen at times. Exactly. I'm not talking slow. I mean, he's collapsing the pocket. He's making some things happen. He's got burst. But, it's not the kind of burn the edge fast. I got to get edges that burn the edge. You haven't drafted a friggin' first round edge rusher since 2010. And that's going to be the guy you get. And I'm not saying he doesn't have bend reps in him, Dom. You're saying go watch his bend rep at 14 of the first quarter from last night. I will. I'll try to find it. But I watched his overall thing, and it's not like bend is his thing. And it's not like tearing the edge is his thing. So who would I pick? I don't know. I think they're in a tough spot. And look, they're not alone, but it's a very Titans thing, It's a very Titans thing that their needs don't match up with their spot. Their needs do not match up with their spot. Let's talk about cuts. Calvin Ridley would save the Titans $13.43 million. I am not convinced that his fate is determined. L'Jarius Sneed would save him $11.4. His fate is known. Cushenberry would save him only $3.4 million. I think he stays. Mike Herndon has a great piece reviewing the entire offense up today. You should read that at paulkuharsky.com. Tony Pollard looks like a better candidate to stay with what he did late, but he saves them $7.2 million. Look, if you can save $7.2 million and go into the free agent pool of running backs, which is not bad, and use that towards a guy with more juice, I would do it. Xavier Woods saves them $3.8 million. People haven't talked about that. He can't run. The Titans have $96.7 million in cap money. This is against the cap using the numbers, they're estimating what the cap will be. That's the second most to the Chargers. You cut Snead, Pollard, and Wood, you get $22.4 million more for a total of $119.1 million. I would overpay Alec Pierce, who's the best receiver, who is not the troubled guy from Dallas, who Dallas is going to re-sign anyway, George Pickens. I would chase Odafe Owe, who got traded to the Chargers from the Ravens. He's the 17th best pass rusher in the league per PFF. He had 7.5 sacks for the Chargers. The Chargers have huge money too, unfortunately. So I don't know that you can get him. I would certainly put it out back channel to Pierce and to Owe that we are going to pay you more money than you're going to get from the Chargers or the Colts, respectively. Get to free agency and let us show you. And then do what you have to do to get a Breece Hall, a Javonte Williams, and piece it together from there. That is my supplement the roster with some big free agents before you get to the draft plan. That is what I would like to see happen. What do we think about that? Welcome to viewer number 2000. Good to see you. All right, let's see what else you guys have, and we will finish strong here. We got about 10 minutes left. Cornerback is a problem. I don't see a cornerback who's worth 4. Cornerbacks generally don't get drafted at 4, but they will be, finding. And the free agent cornerback list isn't great. They got to find at least one there and draft a couple. Rush the passer better to help the defensive backfield for sure. And that's where. I didn't look as carefully at the corner free agent list. I've looked at it before. It's not great. Jalen Watson is a good one. And Caribbean Daniel points that out. I would send a message to him too. Get yourself to free agency. I'm Paul Kuharsky at paulkuharsky.com. Here's why you should join my site. I've covered the team for 30 years, dating back to Houston. I've got good relationships with people inside the building because I am an adult. There are other adults, but I understand how this thing works. I'm Nashville's Hall of Fame voter, Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm not tooting my own horn, but there are 50 of those. That is a position of prestige. They do not pick those people lightly. Nobody else in town can stake that claim. I've got a stable of people. I've built my own place. I'm beholden to no one. And got Mike Herndon, Braden Gall, Blake Bedingfield, Drew Beatty. I have 4 people writing at my site on top of me. I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at. And I've got 4 people who are doing the things that I'm not good at my site. I broadcast at least once a week like this during the off season, hopefully more, especially when news pops. All of you in here seem to enjoy it and be engaged. If you want more of this kind of content, for $7.50 a month, you can have it. I went out to dinner with my family last night, and I paid $16 for a cocktail. I'm sure you're going out and paying $16 for a cocktail. Now, if you can pay $16 for a cocktail, you can pay for paulkuharsky.com. Look, it's not just the content that you're going to get, but it's also an investment in independent journalism of the most vigorous sort on your team. And that's important. And I think you know that it's important. And so if you're not on board, I'd ask you to seriously consider getting on board. So I'm going to drop into the comments here the link for you to come and sign up. There's nothing to it. You can do it yearly if you want to get one lump sum out of the way. But a lot of people, and it's mostly men in here, I know, a lot of people's wives don't like to see an $81 charge on there, which is 10% off. And they're fine with the $7.50 a month charge on there. Help me out. help out the cause, get the benefit, all the benefits of membership, which include a text telling you when the podcasts are going live. Yeah, MB says $16 for a cocktail. Should have bought the bottle and stayed home. That's what it costs at a restaurant. That's what I'm not saying a fancy cup of coffee or a fancy beer costs $16, but it costs at least $7.50. So have one less and come help me out. Appreciate it. Caribbean Daniel says, always support independent publishers and content producers, and I appreciate that. There's my pitch. I hope you can appreciate it and come be a part of things. I appreciate it. What kind of cocktail? It was a rum old-fashioned. Is Barton definitely returning? That's a good question. Barton would cost them $1.38 million to do away with. And I am totally in favor of that. I wasn't cussing the drink because I was having the drink with a purpose to salute someone that I got some bad news about. But I did look at it. I'm more conscious of the price of drinks now because this is my sales pitch to you about I also call myself bottled water for Titans fans. I haven't used that in a long time, but I am bottled water for Titans fans. That's an argument between people. One-third of the league is currently over the cap right now. Hopefully someone shakes loose that can help. That is also coming, Richard Snyder wisely points out. The Independent reported that the independent bloggers hate LMFAO, says Big. And you are correct. Commanders also flip record the year before. Please don't let the Titans off the hook like Jim does in the mailbags. Look, Jim has a different kind of job. We need to expect them to flip it. 4 losing seasons in a row is enough. No more patience. I agree entirely. They need to flip it. I said so in the video that I did. It is time. Hire the right coach, bring in the right people, and start to produce a product that the people of Nashville can support and feel good about it. Patience has been served. Alante Taylor did some good things in that game. He did get his ass cooked by Mason Kinsey, which was not a proud moment. But again, with what's available out there in free agency at cornerback, Alante Taylor would not be a bad addition. Now you have to wonder how much his home fans just love him for the wrong reasons. Look, middle linebacker is a secondary need. Cedric Gray's a revelation. That second guy could be the weakest guy on the defense. Maybe it's James Williams. They're not going to spend money on it. They don't value it as a big position. And they're never going to go find a Luke Kuechly or somebody like that. Even if they stumbled onto it, I don't think that would be. Here's somebody who endorses that plan. Jalen Watson, Oweh, and Pierce would all be great. Now, they're not going to get them all. Some of those guys are going to stay home. How many years should the Titans offer in a contract? Standard head coaching contracts, 5 or 6 years. So that's what it's going to be. Jawan Jennings as a free agent wide receiver, he's more of a 3 than he is a 1 or a 2. And Titans have guys for that 3. So I don't see that. There are some good tight ends as well. Sammy is a big fan of Pitts. I will say Blake Bedingfield pointed this out. I believe that Chikakonkwo, who everybody pines for here, we'll end on this. Titan fans love their guys, and that's fine. But you have to put them in context. Or no, this is Mike Herndon, I'm sorry, wrote this. Chigakonkwo ranks in Pro Football Focus as the worst blocking tight end in the league. You cannot be that in love with that and say, you can't conceivably let Chigakonkwo go because of his runs after the catch and what he's done for the Titans and all of that. If the Titans are going to let go of the worst run blocking tight end in the league, then they have a plan to go get a better tight end who can do some of the things that Chigakonkwo does and block better. And you should want them to do that. You should want them to do that. I'm Paul Kuharsky at paulkuharsky.com. I appreciate you being with me. I enjoy these chats thoroughly. I appreciate your support. If you're not a member of the site, check out the link in the comments. Come join us for everything that we do. Read what Mike Herndon wrote today, a very thorough review of the offense, what the Titans have, what they need, who they should keep, who they should get rid of. That alone is worth the price of admission. And until I see you again, I urge you, don't block the box, but be sure, please, please, to lock your locks.